Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over a college football game preview and prediction on a big matchup coming up in the Big 12 in Week 13 of this 2020 season, and that's going to be between the Iowa State Cyclones and the Texas Longhorns. And both these teams obviously are in contention for the Big 12 championship right now. You got Iowa State on one side, who actually leads the conference. They're at the top of the standings right now with a 6-1 conference record, and then Texas is on the outside looking in. They're currently sitting at the third position in the Big 12, tied with Oklahoma State. So this is going to be a close race to make it into the top two for that Big 12 championship. In Texas, this is going to be a must-win game for them if they're wanting to make it. Meanwhile, for Iowa State, you can consider this to be a must-win game for them as well, considering they will have a 2-loss record in the conference, which ties them with a lot of other teams right now. So this is going to be a crucial game for both these teams moving forward. We're going to be going over a full game preview and prediction on this one here today, starting out with your team trends. And then last week, Iowa State beat Kansas State 45-0 was the final score there. That was a big win for the Cyclones. Obviously, Kansas State has actually been a pretty good team this season, so that was a big win there for Iowa State. And then Texas, of course, has not played over the past couple of weeks due to COVID postponements, but they did beat West Virginia 17-13 back a couple of weeks ago, and that was on November 7th. So they did have a good win there, and they're still coming off of that big win against Oklahoma State back on Halloween. 41-34 was the final score on that one. And Oklahoma State obviously was the top team in the nation at that point. They were actually ranked 6th when Texas beat them. So Texas is still coming off of momentum from that big win that they did have a couple of weeks back. But of course, for the win streaks, both these teams, Iowa State is currently ranked 15th in the nation. They got a 6-2 record, and they've got a 3-game winning streak. Meanwhile, for Texas, they're ranked 20th with a 5-2 record and also a 3-game winning streak. Games will be on Friday, November 27th, 3:30 p.m. Eastern in Austin, Texas. So the Longhorns will be your home team here. Spread currently says Texas by 2. ESPN FPI's got Texas 72%, and the Vegas prediction also has Texas by 2, 31-29. So Texas is favored in all three of our sources here, and it's not much of a surprise. Obviously, Texas being the home team, that does give them an advantage, so the spread usually leans towards the home team a bit. But I'd still say Iowa State has got a lot of potential to win this game. Like, I would not be surprised a single bit if either team won this game, but if Iowa State did, I mean, it wouldn't be much of a surprise at all. Like, both these teams are definitely evenly matched here. You got both teams at the top of the Big 12 and pretty much with similar records. Like, this season, it's just been kind of weird with the Big 12 because usually you have at least one dominant team at the top of the conference, but this season, I mean, you've had a lot of mediocre teams. Like, you've got Iowa State, Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, who are all pretty good. But obviously none of them are a big standout for the college football playoffs. So, yeah, it's just been a weird season as far as that is concerned. But definitely, once again, this is still going to be a big game in determining who does go to the conference championship later on in the season. But then here's our stat comparison for this game. Obviously, Iowa State's got 34 points per game, 23 points allowed. They got 232 pass yards a game, 205 rush yards. And then for yards allowed, they got 229 passing and then 104 rushing. As for Texas, they got 40 points per game, 29 points allowed. They had 269 pass yards a game, 167 rush yards. And then for yards allowed, they got 283 passing and then 117 rushing. So as for both teams here, I mean, Texas has got a lot more points per game. But then again, I'd say the ratio for Iowa State is a bit better considering they got 34-23 in comparison to Texas's 40-29. But still, I mean, both teams are really good on both sides of the ball. Iowa State definitely is more of a rushing team. Of course, they got Breece Hall, who's put up over 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns this season. He's been insane. He's been a great rusher for Iowa State. Meanwhile, for Texas, their top rusher is actually Sam Ehlinger, their quarterback, who's had 323 yards of rushing with 7 touchdowns. So really, I mean, they don't have a very defined running back in Texas, and that's kind of been their problem this season. But Iowa State on the other side, I'd definitely say, is a more complete team. But Texas, I mean, Texas still has got a lot of talent. Like, they've got a better quarterback, I would say. Like, Sam Ehlinger's got a lot more rushing yards. He's got 1,800 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So he's got a great touchdown to interception ratio. And for Brock Purdy, of course, he's Iowa State's quarterback, 1,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions is what he's had. Which really, I mean, those stats aren't very bad as well. I mean, 13-6 touchdown to interception ratio certainly could be improved, but still, I mean, it's not been a bad season for Brock Purdy by any means, but I definitely think both teams still have got a lot to improve on if they're going to be college football playoff contending teams. But still, I mean, both teams definitely got a lot of talent going into this matchup. There's no doubt about that. And then, of course, your previous 5 games for both these teams. Iowa State beat Kansas State on November 21st, 45-0. They did beat Baylor 38-31. They beat up Kansas 52-22, lost Oklahoma State 21-24, and they also blew out Texas Tech 31-15. So really, I mean, once again, Iowa State's had a great season. They've just had a couple of bad losses down the stretch. Of course, they lost once again to Oklahoma State back on October 24th. But I mean, if you look way back to the start of the season, I mean, they lost to Louisiana in I think it was the first game of the season. So all around, I mean, ever since that game at the beginning of the season, Iowa State's definitely improved on themselves, and I definitely think this is a totally different team at this point of the season in comparison to how they were at the beginning of the year. But still, I mean, Texas on the flip side, I mean, this is not going to be an easy team to beat. Texas is back, and they've had a lot of great wins, especially over the past couple of weeks. They're still riding the momentum from their win against Oklahoma State a few weeks back, which, I mean, if you compare both of these teams, I mean, Oklahoma State was ranked 6th on October 24th, and Iowa State lost to them then. Meanwhile, 1 week later, Texas beat them. So you also got to consider that as well, and they were also both in Oklahoma State. So really, I mean, there's not much of a difference there. Texas just played better against Oklahoma State, so you could scale the talent on both these teams based on those games. But still, I mean, both teams have got a lot of talent going into this game, and it would not surprise me to see either team win it. But here are your key points for this one. Iowa State, I'd say, is the top team, or they are the top team in the Big 12 right now with a 6-1 conference record. Texas is back on the rise. You got a good winning streak right now. I mean, Texas has got a lot of momentum heading into this matchup, so Iowa State, it's not going to be an easy game for both teams by any means. But the winner of this game has got a very good chance at the Big 12 championship. There's no doubt about that one. I mean, Iowa State is at the top, so if they win this game, I'd probably say that they're almost basically clinched for the Big 12 championship, because after this, really the Big 12 has got 1 or 2 more games, and that's it. I mean, for Texas on their side, I mean, if they win this game, I mean, they're definitely in contention. Like, they're not clinched yet, but Texas definitely has a very good, or a very clear road to the Big 12 championship if they can get a win here, which it's not going to be an easy win for both these teams. Once again, I mean, both teams are pretty evenly matched here. It would not be surprising to see either team win this game. But in the end, I'm going to give Texas the win. I've got Texas winning this matchup. I mean, they're at home. They've got Sam Ehlinger. I think Sam Ehlinger leads this team to a big win against Iowa State here, which, I mean, don't get me wrong. I went back and forth on this game so many times. Like, the probability is only going to be 60% towards Texas here, mainly because, I mean, Iowa State's got a ton of talent. Breece Hall, they've got a more defined running back in Iowa State in comparison to Texas, where their top running back is actually their quarterback, Sam Ehlinger. So, I mean, the offense, I'd say, is more complete on Iowa State, but on the flip side, Texas has been playing better than Iowa State recently. And even though Iowa State completely shut out Kansas State last week, I just have more faith in Texas right now. I got to go with Texas. 31-20 is going to be your final score. But do let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup. Let me know your score predictions, all of that down below. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And then again, thanks again for watching. Once again, as always, though, stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. And if you enjoyed this preview, slap a like on it and show some support if you appreciated it. Then again, thanks again for watching. Thanks again. And yeah, stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you all later.